It's Mike Harrington again. Thanks again for listening in as we talk about building an exceptional business. As you may recall, I have over 40 years of experience. I've run public and private companies at the president and CEO level, and I've built my own business for the last 15 years. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on my introduction today. I want to get right into the meat of what we're talking about. My hope is that you can benefit from my experience as we go through these sessions. I told my kids on regular occasions, no sense you getting a bloody nose if I've already gotten one. If I've learned a lesson that I can help teach you, then we should learn from my experience. I call that wisdom. I want to just explain a little bit what the Bible says about wisdom. The Bible says this in James 1-5, chapter 1, verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally. So, people ask for money, they ask for fame, they ask for a lot of things, but what I asked for was wisdom, because I knew that if I had wisdom, all those other things that I wanted to do, all those other things I wanted to get would be available to me. And let me just tell you a little bit about how wisdom works. In the universe, there are lots of data. They're out there, lots of things you can learn. There's information, which is data that's really sort of been put in a usable format. If you punch in a keyword on Google, for example, that says guitar lessons, you're going to get a lot of information. So once you got that information from Google, now you learn how to go through the various chords of a guitar. You maybe take some lessons. That's learning. Then you have experience. So now you get out there and maybe you're part of a church group or a group that you've formed and you start playing guitar and you get experience. All those things combined begin to give you wisdom. This is where you take your learning and your experience and you take it to the point where you now can make decisions based on your experience and learning to do things the right way. And as I said, I hope that in this session and other sessions, you will begin to glean some wisdom from things that I say, because these things are built really on experiences I have, on learning that I had. I have an MBA and an educational background, but really my experience and my wisdom came from actually going out there and doing the things I'm going to be telling you about over the next several sessions. So hopefully you'll get a lot of information that you can use. That's the intro for our session today, so we're going to start there, and here is really the meat of what I have to say. In this session, I'll begin to talk more about what I call the STAR model. And for those of you that forgot, I mentioned it in an earlier session, but the STAR model is a model that I created so that I could begin to speak the language of different people. Now, let me explain what that means. As I was doing mergers and acquisitions for Western Union, I had engineers, I had accountants, I had marketing people that were stationed around the world that were doing what I call tire kicking. And tire kicking is basically looking at those companies that would fit the model that would be appropriate for the Western Union brand. But as I began to get information back from them, I saw a variety of different things that were coming in from their reports. The finance guy, for example, would be talking a lot about crunching numbers. The marketing guy would be talking about market share and customers. And the engineering guy, of course, would be talking about infrastructure, because that's what he did. That's the language he spoke. So I said, hey guys, in order for us to speak the same language, I'm going to create a model. And I know it may not be everything that you want to look at or everything that you think you need to look at, but I want us to be able to create a dialogue and a language that we all understand. So I created a model called the STAR model. And again, for those of you that have forgotten what the STAR model looks like, we're going to talk about that in much more detail today, but the components are basically this. What is the vision of the company? What are they today, or what are they trying to become? What does the organizational structure look like? And I'll talk at length about each one of these. What's the infrastructure look like? What are the metrics? What are the rewards? And most importantly, as we were putting our brand on, our brand was worth billions of dollars, we were putting our brand on these products and services. We wanted to know what your value system was. So today we're going to spend some time on vision. This is really one of the most important parts of the STAR model. When I began to look at companies, I wanted to see what they wanted to be when they grew up. Vision is a key for any organization. I'm going to just give you a couple of Bible verses that I look at when I look at vision. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, people perish, but he that keeps the law is happy. So that verse sort of reminded me that, hey, listen, whether it's your own life or whether it's a business, you need to have a vision for what you want for your life. And I think that a lot of people float through life with no clear idea of what they want to do, what they want to be. And things change, of course, as we go through life. I mean, there's things that change in our pathway, but I think we need to be able to figure out what the vision is, not only for businesses, but for our own life. And so the other verse I looked at when I looked at vision, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declare the Lord, plans for welfare and not evil, to give you a future and a hope." Again, one of the things that I always tried to do as a Christian businessman is look at what did the Bible say? Where was the wisdom in what I was trying to do? So those are a couple of verses that I looked at as I looked at the vision of the organization. So that's the other thing. Isn't it great to know the God of the universe wants to have a plan for you? I always thought, wow, that's a great idea. I mean, businesses struggle with plans. They struggle with vision. They struggle with what is the right vision for my company. And so as we begin to look at this segment, let's begin to look at what is important as you begin to build a vision for your company. I will tell you that it's really easy to summarize. It's basically what you are today or what you hope to become. Western Union, I mentioned before earlier, wants to be, or wanted to be at that point, the number one money transfer provider in the world. And the vision for them was to be the number one. You got to be, doing all the things right. You've got a lot of competitors in that space, so you had to do a lot of things right. In the world, sort of said, hey, we're not just operating in your backyard, we're operating in the world. We were actually in 107 countries. So in order to be the dominant player in money transfer in 107 countries, you've got to do a lot of things right. And I would just tell you that vision is the first step in creating a great proposition for your company. A great business always starts with a good business, a good vision. A good company always has a great vision for its employees to learn. So what is vision all about? Well, first of all, I don't think anybody envisions being number 2 or 3 in a marketplace. So you should probably have something that would be challenging. And I would say that, and I'll just give you an example of this in a minute, you need to stretch the organization. Give them a strong story. Give them some place they can't go back to if they've tried it. And I'll just give you a perfect example of that. When I was running Western Union North America, I was in charge of all the agent locations in the United States. We were adding about 1,500 agents a year. And of course, when I asked the people, well, is that enough? They all said, of course, yes, that's plenty. I said, okay, well, this year we're going to add over 2,000. And of course, there was a large groan and sigh. Oh, we can't do that. We've never done that before. When you create a vision for an organization, you probably want to give them a challenge that they've never done before. And I always tell people, if you stretch to the point where the vision takes you, you'll never be able to go back to where you were before. So you're probably wondering, did we achieve the 2,000 for that year? No, we didn't achieve 2,000, but we got real close. We got like 1,870 for the year. And what it did is it proved to the organization that they could challenge themselves and stretch themselves to the point where they could do more than they thought they could. They were excited about the fact that I challenged them to do that. They took that challenge very seriously. So you can challenge the organization with your vision. The second thing it's got to be is optimistic. Now, people always said, well, let's get realistic. And that was always when you say, hey, I got a vision that's going to challenge you to do 2,000 agent locations, for example. You have to ground your vision not only in challenge, but also in the capabilities of the organization. I'll give you a good example. There was a guy that spoke to us one time. I was a psychologist for the Atlanta Braves, a baseball team in Georgia. And he said, what you've got to do is create the right balance between challenge and capability. And we said, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, he said, I work with a lot of pitchers. Pitchers are notorious for needing help. And he said, I work with some pitchers who want to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And they can do it. They can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. But I work with some pitchers who can't throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Your organization, if you're asking it to throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and it doesn't have the horsepower to do that, you're going to create a lot of frustration. So I would tell you, as you look at this vision, be optimistic, but also understand the capabilities of your organization. So the end of that story is when I said, well, what about the people that can't throw the 95-mile-an-hour, 90-mile-an-hour fastball? He said, I teach them how to throw sliders and sinkers and all those things that they can do well. And so what I would challenge you to do as you set up the vision for your company, Look at the capabilities of your company. See if they can really do what you're asking them to do. So you set the tone, by the way. I always tell people, if you say you can or you say you can't as an organization, you're right. And the guy at the top of the organization will set the tone for what you can do. If I felt we could do 2,000 locations in my example, then my team was behind me. They were going to shoot like heck to get to 2,000 agent locations. But they didn't quite make it, but I didn't beat them up over that because they had grown from 1,500 locations to over 1,800, and that was a significant increase. So make sure you fit your optimism with the capabilities of your organization. The other thing you want to do in your vision statement is to create an unsaleable position. What does that mean? Well, with your vision, you're trying to take the company to a point and to a place where your competitor can't easily follow. For example, if I were Honda and I knew that my engine technology was the best in the marketplace, I might say, my special ingredient for anything is the engine. And so what I will do is I'll begin to build an engine that is better than anybody else. And I'll put it in generators, I'll put it in cars, I'll put it in boats, I'll put it in planes. And so what you need to do as you begin to look at this part of your vision, that really is where your competitors can't follow, is what do you do better than anybody else? And how will you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? Make sure you know exactly what you're trying to get done, because it will give you a very clear vision for your organization. So, is the vision motivating and engaging? If your vision is something like, we want to build a certain amount of gadgets and widgets, and we want to be number 3 in the marketplace. That's not very motivating or engaging. So what you want to do in the vision part of this build out is you want people to work for the vision. It's been said that people will work for money, but they will die for a cause. So what you're trying to do in the vision part of your the STAR model is to create a vision that will allow people to get really motivated and excited about what you collectively want to do as a team. Make sure they're on board. Part of the way you engage people in a vision is you not only appeal to their minds, you appeal to their hearts. And by that I mean they want to be a part of something great, something big, something that's really dynamic in the marketplace. And the vision that you're creating for your organization needs to be something that's bigger and better so that they can feel like not only their minds are in it, but their hearts are in it as well. For example, I built a product in Western Union, which really started the whole commercial segment there, called Quick Collect. Quick Collect didn't exist when I came over to the commercial segment. We had a very small other business, and so I began to hire people to build out this product. And we're going to talk about the various phases, but the vision for Quick Collect, which tells you how limited I was, the vision for Quick Collect was to be a $100 million a year product. Well, when I left Western Union, it was about $525 million. And so I would tell you that don't let your vision limit what you can do. If you're going to be building a new product, make sure that you've got enough stretch in it that your vision will take you to where you want to go. So, vision, the other thing a good vision will do is it will begin to give you, once you've crafted a great vision, it'll begin to tell you what are the objectives that we need to focus on in order to fulfill this vision. Well, there'll be probably 4 or 5 things that are really important for you to know, 4 or 5 things that you need to work on that will be important for you to achieve this vision. I tell people is you don't want to boil the ocean. There's always people out there that I had people come to me and put things on my desk all the time that said, hey, I know you want to build this thing out, Mike, but what about this thing? And I'd say, that doesn't really sync with our vision for this organization. They'd say, well, I think we should create sort of a side venture on this. And I'd say, you know what, guys, we've got limited resources, limited people, limited time. In order for us to realize the vision for this company, we need to do it. We need to go with this vision that we've created. So the other thing I would tell people is that vision needs to be able to be broken down into bite-sized pieces. When you're creating a vision for an organization, if you say you want to conquer the world, well, that's a pretty ambitious vision. But if you say, you know what, I want to conquer this part of the world, and I want to do this thing in this part of the world, it begins to break a huge vision down into bite-sized pieces. For example, when I gave the part of my vision for my time at Western Union Domestic or Western Union North America was the creation of this extra number of agents, I broke it down by quarter. I said, okay, you're doing 750 in the first half of the year, and that's only going to mean an increase of 150 or whatever it was. I'm just making these numbers up. But it began to take what was a very large vision, a very large, ambitious goal, and break it down into bite-sized pieces. So your vision should be able to be broken down that way. And when I mentioned Western Union, I said we were in 107 countries. We didn't start in 107 countries. We started domestically with that product, money transfer, and then we moved it internationally, and we began to build out the infrastructure to get to 107 locations. So let me just finish with this by saying that what are the things you want to do in a vision? First, you want to create a vision that is simple and focused. You want to create a vision that will allow you to give what I call an elevator speech. Somebody says, well, what does your company do for a living? Well, my company does money transfer globally. That's a pretty simple explanation of the vision for Western Union. A very complex vision if you think about it. We used to spend days and hours in meetings talking about the vision for our company. So it's to be simple, easy to understand. It's to let everyone know what your company is trying to get done. I always tell people when I went to work with Jackson Hewitt, they always were trying to be secretive about the numbers. I said, I want everybody to see the numbers. I want them to see our numbers every month, every quarter. I want them to be involved in an employee session, no matter where they are. We had a meeting every month where we talked about how we're doing against the numbers and how we were doing against our vision. So it got them involved in the process. So you communicate it regularly. Part of what your job is as a leader of the company and the guy who's running the show is to let people know what your vision is, to reinforce it continually, to make sure they're a part of it, that they're tied into it and they buy into it. That's really what is important to create a good vision for your company. I always worried about when people told me their vision was in a binder somewhere on a shelf, about how effective their vision was, because it was probably written over 3 or 4 pages, which is really not the kind of vision you want for your company because most people don't understand it or even know it. You want an elevator speech for your vision where you can explain very quickly to those on the inside and outside of your company what your company is all about. Western Union, for example, and this may be dated a little bit, their vision at one time was, we want to be the #1 money transfer company in the world. It sort of said the scope of their market, which is in the world, sort of said what they wanted to be, which was #1, and there were a lot of people trying to be in that space, and they wanted to be in the money transfer business. So it gave the people listening to that very simple statement for a company that was doing at that time about $4 billion a year. It gave them a very good idea of where they were trying to go as a company in a very simple format. And so if you've got several divisions and several groups, you may want to take a broader look at your vision statement, as we'll go through some of these later on. For Apple, who's got a gazillion products, and 3M, who's got a lot of products, there's different people will take a broader view of their vision instead of trying to drill down on a specific area of their company. And so we'll talk about various visions as we go forth, and you'll begin to see those that I think are good and helpful. But the thing to remember here is visions are simple. They recharge and get your organization going in the same direction.